second fiddle in Oklahoma City at this point, which is kind of fun on a lot of what is going on. Carter is like an Energizer bunny, and so we just keep putting batteries in him and letting him run. And it's really just neat to see what's going on. So if I would put kind of what's going on in Oklahoma City over the last 6 months, we've seen 7 teams, very distinct teams, rise up in Oklahoma City. And we just had an intensive training with the leaders of what we see really kind of the hub leaders of each of these kind of different areas of Oklahoma City. We did a 2-day, so we did a 2-day training with them. We did 2 tools in each field, and we called it a 0 to church in 2 days, or 2 minutes or 2 days. So we just said we wanted all the leaders to be able to explain 0 to church in 2 minutes or 2 days. And our goal was to train a group of swarm trainers that we could then turn around and just, when everybody had time. The interesting thing about Oklahoma City is everybody has jobs. So every single person in Oklahoma City is working jobs along with what they're doing with us. So we're trying to figure out a way to do it so that we can help each other because of time constraints. So we've got a group that we kind of refer to as the Tide Group that kind of comes out of the business that we're working through. And they have really partnered up with a gentleman by the name of Mark Goring. Mark is one of the pastors at a Vineyard Church, part of the Vineyard movement in Oklahoma City. He's an extremely gifted trainer, extremely gifted at hearing and listening from the Lord, and so the Lord's kind of wrapped around him about 30 leaders, and they've decided to take on Midtown, and so a hub of people have moved into an apartment complex in Midtown Oklahoma City, and it's kind of the convergence of the gang area of that town, the hipster area, and then the internationals area all kind of meet. So you can literally go from one block to the next, and it's like Asians, hipsters, gangs. It's weird. It's just kind of a weird place in Oklahoma City. But they've targeted Oklahoma City University campus, and they're going out on a weekly harvest rhythm there. And God's doing some neat stuff. They're seeing healings probably 3 to 4 times a week right now on what God's doing through that. And then we have a group that's Youth for Christ. The former youth pastor of Life Church, the one that helped start the youth group in Life Church, has kind of come into our world. And he's a very, very networked guy. And so we're just kind of following his path, if you will. And he's brought a group of guys together, and he's actually the main hub of what's now Youth for Christ. So whenever he left Life Church, he started Youth for Christ in Oklahoma City, and they're on 63 school campuses. And they've got a legacy church and a Youth for Christ leader that are attached to each of these schools. And he's the main fundraiser for everything that they're doing. And this summer, out of the training that we did, they're now training all of those churches and all of those leaders to do a No Place Left vision in all the campuses that they're on in Oklahoma City. So we got 63 high school and middle school campuses that they're running with now, which is pretty exciting. We're going to see what happens. And there's one particular leader named Drew. Carter's been working really closely with him. I only kind of hear the stories and give him a thumbs up whenever I happen to run across them. But Drew is the leader of what's called Class in SAS. It's a magnet school for people of the arts and for math and sciences. It's actually, like, it's a public school, but it's a very difficult one to get into. And he's there, and there really was no gospel on that. And he's just been sharing the 3 circles 3 hours every week for each of the lunch breaks. And they've seen about 180 students come to Christ out of this one high school. And so now they're raising up leaders, and they're training leaders to start high school students to basically start churches with the band and with the football team and with the art group and so they're trying to work within that kind of thing. And people have been we've had doctors through the YFC program that have caught the vision of it, and they've sold their homes, and now they're buying homes across the street from these high schools, and they're deciding that they're going to take a high school themselves. And so we're seeing people in Oklahoma City sell stuff and move to different areas within Oklahoma City and buy homes, and it's pretty incredible. Then we've got a guy named Kurt Goss, who has he was a missions pastor at Northwest Baptist Church, one of kind of the staple churches of Oklahoma City, for about 23 years, and he resigned that church to go full-time doing No Place Left. He finally decided he had had enough of trying to work within the structure. He's 64 years old, and he has as much energy as Carter. So it's pretty incredible. But he's bringing, which is really neat, he's bringing a network of 23 years of of SBC work inside of Oklahoma City. And so he set up a training that we have now with one of the other larger Baptist churches, which is Putnam City Baptist Church. And so what's funny is that my wife and I have been living on the northwest side of Oklahoma City ever since we moved there 4 years ago, and we haven't seen much traction at all. And now through Kirk, we have a weekly prayer and training gathering at a coffee shop that's 2 miles down the road from where Ann and I live, and a church that's just a half a mile down the road from where their building is half a mile down from where we live, is now going to host an intensive training, and the pastor is really pushing to kind of get those things going. So we've got the YFC team, the Tide team, we've got we call them the Internationals team because Kirk is really focusing in on that. And through those connections, Kirk has been working with Bruce Carlton at OBU a ton. And so we've seen an OBU team of students raised up. And so now the Shawnee team with Dr. Carlton and some of the things that are going on with churches in there are cross-pollinating with that one. And so we've got a residency with 4 now graduated OBU students. And they're going to partner with me, and I'm going to take them through their seminary by doing No Place Left. And so they're going to be able to get seminary credit while they're working with us and for us. So we've hired them in our business so that they can eat. And then they're going to be working with us, specifically focusing in on Chinese, Vietnamese, and then the other 2 haven't decided yet. But one of them is kind of working with some Africans. So we got a real international focus that's going on as well. And then we've got a group of guys that came through the YFC connections that have decided that they're going to take this one block that's called, we just call it the Western Britain block, but it's a very difficult area of town, tons of poverty. And they've decided that their square mile is going to be theirs. And so they've committed to see if they can start a church in 4 churches within the square mile. And what's crazy is that through that, they're in a church that we're meeting in weekly for. We have a Tuesday afternoon weekly training and prayer time that just meets repetitively at that church. And now the pastor and the youth pastor started coming into that training with us on Thursdays. And so the pastor just a couple of weeks ago stood up and told the church that they were going to plant churches within their city blocks, that they didn't want them to come there anymore. They wanted the church members to go there. And so they are actually scheduling a training for their entire church coming up in about a month. So that was a pretty neat kind of recent event. And so that's that team that's there. And then through their work among some of the poverty that's going on there, they connected with 3 or 4 African American gentlemen that really have a heart for inner city, Oklahoma City. And so now we've got a team of guys who are completely focused in on the kind of the gang African American population kind of in the downtown part of Oklahoma City that hadn't got cleaned up yet. Nobody likes it. Nobody wants to go there. It's right around the Capitol. And these guys grew up there. And so that's their home. And so it's neat to see them start working. And so it's weird because here I am, a white guy, and I'm speaking to this group of African American pastors, and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing here helping you guys, but they're kind of stirring that up. And then just a couple of weeks ago, we've been working off and on with the Baptist General Convention of Oklahoma. The church planting pastor catalyst, or the church planting catalyst for the BGCO that works with Hispanics specifically, went out with Carter and Mark just 2 weeks ago, and he went back and told basically everybody this is what we're going to do. And now he's got BGCO guys going out into the harvest every week in the middle of what we call the box, which is the Hispanic part of town where the poverty and the drugs and a lot of the gang activity in the Hispanic community happens. And his name is Ever, and so we're really excited about Ever because he's like, this is what I've been looking for my whole life. And so in the last 3 weeks we've seen Ever kind of pop up. So those 5, 6, 7 teams that God's kind of percolating, we're training those leaders, and then we're trying to cross-pollinate the leaders to train together, so that, like you said, our biggest stuckage is how do we move forward in Oklahoma City when we've got charismatic Vineyard Church guys, which are really balanced, which is really cool, and then Southern Baptists who are scared to death of miracles but love the Word of God, that are in the same room, and then you've got Nazarenes who are working themselves to death to stay saved, and then you've got then you've got these guys who are from an African American non-denominational background that are all they're all merging and coming together. And so we had a really big discussion. Jacob Vi has been super helpful for me to understand the big vision, clear path, simple tools kind of process that he uses. So we had a discussion in Oklahoma City about what's going to bring unity to us is going to be the clear path. If we get into simple tools, we're going to fight with each other. Because we're seeing a lot of guys in Oklahoma City take in no place left and spit it back out in their language. And I don't want to get in the way of that. I feel like if someone can eat it and then spit it back out in their language, then that means they understand it better than if they just said what I said.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And so we're really encouraging, like Mark, for instance, he's got a whole slew of guys that are running with him. Well, if he's got 30 leaders gathered around him, if he wants to call 3/3 something different, then I don't care. They've got the same principles behind it. So we spent a lot of time on the last training talking about how we need to really rally around entry, gospel, discipleship, church, and leadership development. And then we picked a core set of tools that we chose to train together for catalytic purposes. Even though those may not be the ones that like I use or that they use, we chose. Does that make sense? We just picked tools and we all said, okay, we may not use these every day, but for the sake of catalyzing stuff and for the sake of training together and for the sake of us being able to go, hey, I've got 6 pastors that need to be trained. I can't go. Who can do that? And we know at any given point that somebody can go do that. We're picking those, and then we're saying if we develop a coaching relationship, because we're finding that people connect better with others. So someone might connect with me, they might connect with Mark, they might connect with Daniel, they might connect with Carter. And so rather than us trying to all circle around them, we're saying, you go coach that group and I'll go stir up somewhere else. Does that make sense? So we're trying to really do that. And one of the ways we're trying to do that is we are starting a band group on our iPhones. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that app or not, but it's a band group that allows us to put our trainings, to put all of our kind of God stories up, to put all of our news feeds up so that everybody in Oklahoma City who's a part of it can just look and hear and see what's going on. And we made the choice to not get in a tizzy about someone using a different church circle. We just made that decision. I'll be honest, I'm a little concerned about it because I don't know how things are going to reproduce if we get into confusion. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's our stuckage. We want to stay true to the clear path and follow the core missionary task and take those kingdom principles and implement those. And then we want to make sure that when people are running, that we submit to the tools of the guys we're running with rather than asking them to use the tools that we're using. So if I go train with Mark and I'm with guys that Mark's spending time with all the time, I'm going to train Mark's tools. And if I don't know it, I'll just say, I don't know that one, and I'll train the one that I do know. Does that make sense? I have no idea what's going to happen with that. We'll see. But I saw a fight coming real fast. Like, we brought everybody together, and within 45 minutes of us starting the training, somebody goes, well, I use, and I was just kind of like, we got to deal with this right now. And so we had a good discussion. But that's kind of where we are in Oklahoma City, and we'll see what's going on. A couple of things outside of Oklahoma City is one of the guys, we've got a guy that took a job in Singapore, and so we've got a Venezuelan who came to Christ in Oklahoma City who's now meeting with a group of Filipinos in a home or apartment in Singapore, and they speak English even though his native language is Spanish and their native language is Tagalog. But they're meeting in Singapore. And we went to visit him, and he's struggling. But the amazing thing is that he's trying, and he's by himself. He moved there all alone. His name is Gustavo. It's there. And then we've got a couple of people that are on their way to Colombia, Bogota, Colombia. So we'll see what happens there. And it's chaos. And I don't know half of what's going on. So that's all I know right now. Woo!